try something else. And Defence Intelligence said, well, how about a slow but sure way, release some newsletters over a period of time. So that's how The Voice was born. And they've been produced ever since.
So, in essence, this information that we're getting is officially approved information as such, or unofficially approved?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
They would deny it if they were...
Obviously, anyone connected with the programme would strongly deny its very existence. The governments wish to inform the people that there is aliens, UFOs, all the rest of it, but they can't come straight out and say so. So they do it in a roundabout way in this public education programme.
So let's get back to actually how you got into the situation that you're in today. Where does it start, and bring us up to
That's
date?
a very complicated thing, because I've virtually been involved in a sort of government survey since I was a very young child, and this survey is ongoing today. They chose certain individuals during the 50s to take part in this genetic survey. So obviously by the time I was old enough to become part of the real genetic experimentation in 1972, that's when the programme actually took over, but it still runs side by side. This government survey, one runs in this country and the same thing is run in the States, and the programme virtually took over 1972 onwards. Part and parcel of it, it's all part of
these little greys we're making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To lead us to all think there's an alien threat.
Okay.
Yeah, well that's, as I say, that is part and parcel of that same indoctrination programme.
Yeah.
It's mind manipulation.
Yeah.
They are playing with people's minds.
Yeah.
They are using genetic engineering and experimentation. They're using spare parts. That's another nasty side of things. In the mid-80s, they saw a very good way of getting in quite a lot of capital was to, because there's always a shortage with spare parts, organs.
For who?
The rich and famous.
That's right.
I mean, they might in the past have difficulties, badly need a liver, badly need this or that or whatever.
I mean, the film Coma was about that.
Exactly. I mean, they got so near to what is really going on, you really wouldn't believe it.
It's also happened to a friend of mine in 2007, and since then I found out it's happened to quite a few people in different cities around England.
Yeah, literally so many people disappear off the face of the earth. A percentage of those people, they go into the base, they don't come out.
Why do you think they want to screen everyone to find out what their blood groups are and everything? It's not, what's the point?
It's a very
otherwise?
lucrative business, and that's just a sideline of the project.
So where do the aliens come in?
Well, that's the big thing, you see. The main aims of this project is to manipulate the public's mind in a way that, there is a threat. It's from outer space. And they're perpetuating that threat. That, aliens, they're hostile, they're doing this, they're doing that. It isn't at all. The threat is really here on Earth. It's the project that's doing it.
And they are creating these generated life forms?
They are. They've made quite a few, various sorts of life forms at the base, yes.
So how do you know this information, and have you seen anything?
I've actually been to the base. I worked there between August and December of '79 in a security capacity.
Are you able to say which base?
Well, it's officially known as Peasemore, and when you came out with that I thought, crikey. That's its official title, is Peasemore. Everyone who's connected one way or another, as I said, with the programme, everyone's implanted. Now they experimented, as I said, what they said in 1979 was this is an experimental procedure we're now going through. Everyone's going through it, it's nothing to worry about. They clouded it by saying, well, what we're doing, we're seeing if we can control your fingers, your hand, by remote. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to stop the signals from your brain reaching your hand, and we're going to control, we want it to wave, we want it to play the piano with a small incision, in goes the implant, and it's as simple as that, and then we'll start taking over with the computers. Oh yeah, great, okay, I've no real problem with that.
By who? For what reason?
Well, let's give them one of their very fancy names, the elite. They've been called by lots of names over the years.
Basically, the rich, the people in, the politicians, the bureaucrats,
those at the very top of the tree.
Like it always has been.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're the administrators.
The administrators. They're the ones who are implementing all this, because, I mean, let's face it, I don't think in all probability some of the politicians probably don't know the full scale of things, and if they do, it's on an unconscious level, because I think if I went up to Tony Blair and said, excuse me, Mr. Blair, do you think you're being manipulated by aliens, he'd laugh at me. So I don't think that all the politicians know. But, I mean, you know, I think that you see, because, I mean, my mum's got friends in Strasbourg. She knows people in Strasbourg. And that they don't even know very much about this. They know that there's a computer there called the Beast, Brussels Electronic Auditing Surveillance Terminal. You know, and I've heard this from other people as well. This is common knowledge. It isn't like ultra secret stuff or anything. But you know, even the European Court doesn't seem to be made fully aware of it. The European Parliament, the British Parliament. It's the administrators, because the administrators push things in. They're the ones that bring the ideas in. It's only Parliament that puts the seal of approval on it.
Them and us?
Well, no, not that kind of exchange. Well, yeah, in a way. But apparently, I mean, the Greys apparently have got predominant usage of part of the installation on Mars, which they're using for a genetic centre for crossbreeding grey, alien, you know, ET greys with humans for their own purposes, and their purposes are to create a hybrid race because they want to become more human. They want a chance of survival, and I can understand that. But their genetic engineers come down here to help us create our little life forms, and in return they get access to genetic material. This is going to be sick, aborted fetuses, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And they get that for their own purposes, and it's kind of like an ongoing thing. Human scientists maybe go up there, I don't know. It's not lovey-dovey at all. It is utility, it's an arrangement, it is business. There's nothing lovey-dovey about it at all.
That would tie in very nicely with some of the procedures you go through at the base. You get acclimatised to hostile environments.
Yeah, I mean, the atmosphere, you could cut it with a knife.
Yeah, that would tie in nicely with that. Why they would want to do that.
You know, they don't like us, and we don't like them, and it's like we're only doing it because of what we're each going to get out of it. But the Greys, whereas the military intend to obviously get enough technology out of the Greys whereby they could actually combat the Greys and stand up to them at least, or try and obliterate them at the very worst. Whereas the Greys have sort of covered themselves by making sure that these little generated life forms, who are basically genetically related to the Greys, are programmed from the Greys' point of view too, that if it gets all too heavy, the generated life forms will turn against the military. Because at the end of the day, they're brothers, Greys and the life forms. And whereas they haven't got this individual sense of brotherhood, they've got this collective mind like ants. So you kind of like, they're they're not worried about sacrificing themselves, they're more like a Muslim mind, you know, or the Japanese, you know, I'll sacrifice myself for my country. The Grey will sacrifice himself for the sake of the Greys. He doesn't care because he's got no sense of fear or feeling. It doesn't matter about the individual, it matters about the collective. So from their point of view, they're quite happy. You know, it doesn't matter how many get lost because they'll just make new ones, you know, because it's like cloning. They don't have to wait 9 months.
Well, that's a very rapid procedure.
So they don't, it's like production line time. They don't have to worry about losing numbers.
And how do they work? I mean, you've got this situation where you've got Greys walking around bases here in England.
Yeah, the generated life forms, obviously they've got no reasoning powers of their own at a certain stage. So they're just like clones, you know, you tell them to do something, they'll go and do it. As a unit, as an army, yeah, they all will move as one. I mean, people have been reported, they've had abductions, and these things have been milling around as if they've been...
Just like Ed Walters,
yeah. Little pre-programmed drones. They've got a job to do, they'll just go and do it no matter what.
Workers.
This is Bases 1. Yes, in 2021 we are rejoining the very first bases, all about Peasemore. Barry King and Lisa Williams from London UFO Studies, which was in East London, came to me way back in the mid-90s, the early mid-90s, around about 93 actually. And he started talking about aliens being made in underground bases in Berkshire at a place called Peasemore, AL499. A few years after that, James Casbolt started putting stuff up on YouTube. He'd watched my Bases 1, and at the time it was just called British Bases. And Bases 2 had been shot, and that was with Ray Wardle, and some terrible things were coming to light. I have done a 2010 update on Bases 1, but Lisa didn't want it up on YouTube, so it's been taken down. And well, now we are now in 2021, and we've got somebody new, somebody who went to the same school as James Casbolt, somebody who knows about what's really going on and has direct experience about the tunnels, Peasemore, and a whole lot more things. And some of the things she has to say are truly horrific. There's been all sorts of rumours and talk, and some photographs have been released now about what's going on in the tunnels. Julie Phelps has been horrified. And but because Sophia was at the same school as James Casbolt and is talking about Peasemore, I'm not going to say welcome. Welcome is not a word. This is Basis 1, 2021, with Sophia. Welcome to Basis 1. We're going back to Basis 1. And we've got Sophia here. Is that right?
Yes.
And where do you come in on this story, Sophia?
Well, I was trafficked from a baby, and I found out that I've discovered that I was trafficked after many years of trying to work out what had happened to me, because I had been told different things by the family that adopted me, who made me believe that I was born into that family. And I was born in South Africa, but I had got a solicitor who was investigating my birth certificate and where I was born, and the solicitor employed a private investigator in South Africa, who then came back and said that the clinic I was born in didn't exist, and that perhaps I had come from a baby farm somewhere in Africa. I believe it was Swaziland, which is now called something else, but I can't pronounce that. And so the private investigator said that I probably wasn't born where I was told I was born, and that my birth certificate was probably a forgery. So the solicitor said, well, we can't do anything about that because I have ID in this country, in Britain, so we'll leave it at that for the moment. So I then worked out that perhaps my mother wasn't really my mother, my birth mother, and that my father was actually my uncle, and that my natural birth father was actually his brother, who's again my uncle. So that was that. So I was brought into this country when I was 3, but I don't believe that that's my real date of birth, that I was 3. I think I was more like 6 when I arrived in the UK.
Why do you feel that's the case?
Because nothing really added up. I mean, it didn't make any sense. My memories were totally different to what I was being told by my family, and it didn't coincide with anything.
In what way?
Well, the memories I had were completely different. I had memories of being in you could call it a village or a compound, and it was like an African village with huts with thatched roofs, and really I was speaking another language. I wasn't English. It seemed to be French. That seemed to be my first language. I remember speaking a different language, French and maybe Xhosa. And of course, I learned Afrikaans because I went from Swaziland to Johannesburg in South Africa. I remember it was kind of like I went from Swaziland to Johannesburg, and then came to the family. But while I was in this village, the people that were going to adopt me would come and visit in the village, obviously to acclimatise me to them or something, get me used to them, that kind of thing. And I remember going into this place in Johannesburg now, and my mother, I have realised, my natural birth mother is actually my godmother, officially. So so she's my godmother because I'm a spitting image of her, and my youngest daughter is a spitting image of her as well.
What do you mean by the spitting image?
We look.
I mean, real. I mean,
I look like her daughter.
Or a clone.
It could be a clone.
I mean, you think it's as close as that?
It's as close as that, yes. But it's as close as my younger daughter is to me. And my youngest daughter is not a clone. I definitely gave birth to her. So I would say also that my mother, my godmother, if you like, we're very similar. And you could say clone. I think she is my mother because she feels like my mother. You know, you can tell. I never really had that kind of link with the woman who said she was my mother. So when I confronted the family and said, well, can we have some DNA tests? They refused. I offered to pay for the DNA tests and they refused. So if my daughters came to me and said, can we have a DNA test? I'd say yes, because I know they're my daughters. In fact, we were going to do the DNA test with my daughters and me because I was trying to get child support from their father, and he was refusing to pay the child support without the DNA test. So I said, okay, we'll do it. And then he paid, so he gave up on that idea because he knew that he was the father of the children. So, but that's another story. So yes, so my father, who's my uncle officially, he is a Freemason. He's also in the same lodge as my ex-husband's uncle, who my ex-husband was also trafficked as a baby. Can you mention what lodge or what version? The lodge was Reading, or one of the lodges in Reading, around that at Berkshire, and I think it's the Reading's main lodge. I'm really not sure how many lodges are in Reading. I know there's a couple, but also there could be a lodge in Pangbourne, or I don't think there's one in Pangbourne, but around that area. So it could be that lodge, but I'm not sure exactly which lodge they both belong to, because my ex-husband's uncle, who he believes is his father, he was in the same lodge as my uncle, who I believe is my birth father. So they were in the same lodge together. I have memories of my ex-husband's uncle abusing me, and but I knew my ex-husband's family, his father, his uncle, from the age of 4, or whenever I arrived in the UK, and his father left the family home when he was 4, and his supposed father moved down to his uncle, and so that's how I know my ex-husband's father and uncle and that family more than he knew them. So that because they came, he was supposedly born in Newcastle, but he had memories of coming from Canada. My ex-husband does.
What part of Canada?
Well,
we've got stories about Canada.
Sorry?
That we've got a lot about Canada.
Yeah, he had memories of, it seemed to be like Ontario. Now, my family The people I'm connected with who bought me, they have connections with Canada too. They live by the lake in Canada. Is it Ontario Lake?
I think it's Lake Ontario.
Lake Ontario. They live near Lake Ontario. And so they have connections there in Canada. But that part of the family also have connections with Scotland. And there's a cousin with my grandmother, who's from the grandmother of the people that bought me. She has a cousin, or had a cousin, sorry, that lived on Loch Ness. And his name was Alistair. Now, I don't know.
Now, what part of Loch Ness?
I do not know.
We've had.
I don't
we've
know.
Had various musical instrument, musical band people there. Also, a certain guy who used to run a certain.
Well, she
cult.
mentioned the fact that this Alistair is a millionaire. Sorry, he's dead. So, she mentioned that he had connections with bands and things, and I don't know if it was the Beatles or.
It wasn't Deep Purple or something.
It could well have been. She never mentioned the name of the.
I know that one of the. We're talking Alistair Crowley here.
Yes, but I don't.
That's the house. Is that correct? On the south side of Loch Ness, where the sun will never actually shine on that.
It
house.
could very well be that was the connection there. Yes. She said that he was part of Wimbledon. He would choose from the ball girls and ball boys, budding tennis stars, that type of thing. I don't know what you call it, like a coach or something.
Yeah.
He would search
we're
out.
We're not talking about anything nefarious here. We're just talking about sport. Or are you talking about something nefarious?
No, I mean. Just this millionaire who's called Alistair, lived by Loch Ness. She said was like an umpire at Wimbledon. He was connected. Well, there was that connection there and everything, and he was a millionaire back then. So obviously now that would equal to being a billionaire. That kind of wealth.
What I want to establish is. Are we dealing with something which is, very unsavoury? We just want to clear the air there. Is there anything you're talking?
Well, considering that this grandmother, considering she was part of a family that was, the women were Sisters of the Star, which was the female Freemasons, and they were in Scotland, and then the fact that majority of the family are sort of linked to Freemasonry in that respect, the women and the men, I would suggest that Alistair was a Mason as well, Freemason too. So if you're seeking out ball girls and ball boys for Wimbledon, there could be nefarious dealings there too, yes.
Okay, well, we put a big coat on that. We can't. I don't want to cast aspersions if there's
no
evidence.
I'm not casting aspersions on Wimbledon.
Okay, that's
or the
very important.
tennis lawn association. No, not at all. But I mean, that was that. But Alistair, this cousin, passed away supposedly in the 1980s. Now I know.
Why do you say supposedly? Why?
Because
supposedly?
there was no funeral. There was no sort of anything about looking at his. When he passed away, it wasn't like she was invited to the funeral or went to the funeral or anything like that. It was just like, oh, he's died. But
what are you saying here exactly?
Well, I don't think he passed away. I don't think.
What brings you to that conclusion? What feelings, what circumstances are you talking?
Because I think there was more to it than that. I think he probably may have left the planet. He may have passed away or changed identity or gone somewhere else. Maybe he was never died.
What's the background there? Why are you saying those things? What makes you think
Because the man, my birth father, his mother, who suffered from senile dementia, Well, he had a house on the river banks of Caversham, and she had senile dementia, but she would go on about this lizard creature man thing coming out of the river. Now, I know she had senile dementia, and you could say, well, she's confused and, you know, she's an old lady, but she was petrified of this lizard man that used to come out the river. And she would say, oh, he'd just walk across the lawn, and this house, this mansion, was on the riverbank. He built it himself.
Could you give us more details on that? Where, what river?
The River Thames, Caversham, Reading. He built the house. He designed it. Not literally built it. He had builders, but he designed this house and everything, funded it. But it was.
Was there any special design in the house?
It looked like. It looked very like South Fork, the house in Dallas, South Fork. You know, the TV series. It looked like something like that, or more like the house that Prince Andrew and Fergie had built when they were married. It was that kind of designed kind of house.
What special thing about it, apart from being on just an ordinary sort of house with rooms in it, up, down? What sort of thing that's meant to be special about it?
Well, he had. It had to be built on stilts because it's on the River Thames, so it could for flooding. They had a tennis court built. They didn't really have cellars or anything because it was on the river, so because of flooding,
and that's
as far as I know.
quite common in that area. It's not a big deal.
Sorry?
It's quite common, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very common. You have to, when you build on the river, you have to have it built on stilts because of flooding on that part of the river. It's just a bit way down. The house was just a bit way down from where the Reading Rock Festival is held, on the field further down. And this house is built further down from that field where the Reading Rock Festival is held.
Are you suggesting that there's some kind of a connection with the Reading Rock Festival and the kind of subjects we're talking about here?
Well, they knew the group. I'm going to call them the group that purchased me. They knew the person who started the Reading Rock Festival, who was the organiser. I don't know if there's any connection to that. They could have a connection with the rock festival. I just know the guy who originally sort of organised it and everything. He was connected to the group.
Well, the main thing here is we're basing it on your personal experience and knowledge, and not any suppositions.
Yes.
But expand on that.
So, I just know about the guy or the people who was involved with the Reading Rock Festival. I didn't actually have any dealings with those people or anything like that, so I can't say.
What about this thing you said you were purchased? Explain all that.
I believe that when I was in Africa in this village, I was bought, and so.
Which village? Where?
In Swaziland. And then the private investigator said, I didn't have a record in South Africa. He couldn't find me. He couldn't find the clinic. The clinic that was put on my birth records didn't ever exist. And he then went further back into my history, and he said, I believe you were purchased, or it was something to do with a baby farm, because there are many baby farms in Africa and South Africa, and there was back then in the 70s, 60s.
What exactly do you mean by baby farms?
Farms.
What for? Who was buying it? Buying the babies?
Well, these women get pregnant, they're impregnated, and then they have babies and stuff. I mean, they could be impregnated by the abusers, because it was the group I was bought by were into satanic ritual abuse as well. So
explain all that.
Well, I had memories of being the satanic ritual abuse, and the group being being part of that as well, the satanic ritual abuse.
What exactly are you referring to by satanic ritual abuse?
Well, it was very
Now, I'm going to caution you there, because I'm going to ask questions which are going to lead to data, information for the benefit of the public. That's the purpose of this thing, benefit of the public. It may not be in your benefit, but I'll ask you something, but you don't have to answer it.
I understand.
But it's up to you. I don't want to put you through re-traumatization on things.
It's fine.
But that's why we're here. But, okay, blessings. Okay.
So, yes, so the group, it was satanic ritual abuse. It seemed that the women were above the men in the group. Women were higher in the group. The men would be lower than the women. And I had memories of this satanic ritual abuse, and there would be like places like the local church. The vicar was part of the group. They had a cover of an amateur dramatics group that they were members of, and they would use that, I think, as a cover. They also did amateur filmmaking. And with the amateur filmmaking, then obviously there was the other side of the amateur filmmaking.
What do you mean by obviously?
So it was like they would have they'd make films for competitions and things. And I say obviously because they were into Satanism.
What's wrong with just making films for creativity and learning how to use cameras and all that sort of stuff? Why? Well,
it wasn't really for that. It was just to enter competitions and so, amateur filmmaking, yeah. And then they would do historical dramas, that type of thing. But then they were also making films nefariously, or we could call it pornography, that type of thing.
Okay, go into the detail on that, because you've said things on the phone which are... Which I'm going to mention the word James Casbolt.
So, yes, so I was living in this village in Whitchurch-on-Thames, near Pangbourne, and that's in Oxfordshire. And then eventually we moved to Tilehurst, Reading, and I went to a secondary school there, and that was Steenfield Comprehensive School, which is the same school as James Casbolt went to. I believe he was at the same school as me at the same time, but I think he was 2 years below me when I went to Deanfield School.
So why would you be part of, or what's the relevance of somebody who's 2 years below you? Because how would you know? I mean, there's lots of kids there. Why did James Casbolt stand out? What's the connection?
Because he mentioned he went to Deanfield School. And then also my uncle, who I believe is my birth father, was a governor of that school, of Deanfield School.
So let's go into those details.
And the headmaster of the school lived in the village where I first came to when I came to this country. He had a house in that village as well. The same headmaster that was the headmaster when James Casbolt went to the school as well.
Now, what age are we talking? What sort of class levels are we talking about?
When I went to Deanfield School, I was in the last 2 years of my education going to GCSEs, so about 14 to 15, 16, yes. So I was about 14 when I went there. I had to go to Tilehurst Deanfield School because we were living in Oman, the Sultanate of Oman, and they closed down the English-speaking school in Oman. So instead of me going to boarding school, I came back here and went to comprehensive school in Britain, in Tilehurst, sorry, because I didn't want to go to boarding school. My rich uncle, he offered to pay for me to go to a Swiss boarding school. And I said no. So that's why I went
What
to...
sort of school, and why did you say no?
I didn't want to go to Switzerland because my adoptive father had been to the Swiss boarding school, and he went on about terrible stories about going to that school, the Swiss boarding school.
Such as?
Well, he just said it wasn't very nice. He never mentioned abuse or anything, but he just sort of would go on about how he didn't like going there. He said it was a complete waste of his time. So
I mean, it's fair to say that a lot of boarding schools, there's lots of stories, all sorts of things going on there. There's been a few films made about it, but we're not dealing with satanic abuse. It's just the sort of public school system.
yes. Well, as he is an abuser, that man, he probably was abused there. I don't know. He never mentioned it. But if he's abusing other people, he's not going to mention his abuse if he's not going to face up to what happened to him. Yeah, but I know that. So yeah, that's...
Can you tell us what happened to him?
Well, he never mentioned anything about abuse or anything like that. He just said it wasn't a very nice experience to go to that Swiss boarding school. He didn't.
Okay, well, you mentioned Oman. What happened there?
So my father got a job in Oman, the Sultanate of Oman, and so we went over to Oman because back then you could do that, have your family brought over to the country with the person who's working there. And so in Oman, he worked for a concrete company in Oman. Now I do believe that, let's go back a bit here. So yes, so what happened was his family and that rich man I was talking about, who I believe is my birth father, they inherited the concrete company from their father, and they used to get contracts with the military to supply concrete for the laser, to shoot the laser at and things like that. And they said the laser was called Kitty. They also supplied a huge amount of concrete to the military. This concrete was supplied for all kinds of works in and around Berkshire, the south of England, that type of thing. The concrete was supplied to all the way up to Milton Keynes, all the way to the Orkney Islands, Wales, Scotland, Ireland,
now,
down south as well.
Concrete's sort of heavy stuff, and it's the sort of stuff which doesn't really travel too well.
No.
So, what the heck does this particular concrete have that it's necessary to be going to all these different types of places? I mean, if you look at different types of concrete, the stuff bridges are made of and whatever it is, and concrete expands, and usually you need expansion joints and stuff. It must have some special property that's very unique.
Well, they supplied the concrete to all these things, like all the way up through the country, all the way up to Milton Keynes, London, and went down to London, down south, down to Cornwall, the other end of the country.
What do you mean by things?
Sorry, what?
Things.
They supplied... I didn't quite get that, sorry.
Well, you said things.
What was I saying before that, sorry?
You were saying the concrete was supplied to things. What type of thing?
Well, like I say, building tunnels and stuff, underground works for the military or companies.
How do you know it was used for tunnels?
Because
and other things.
Because they would talk about it.
Who would talk about it?
All right, my two fathers. they would talk about it and things.
Your two fathers?
Well, the rich one and the father who adopted me.
So what would they say?
They would just go on about what they were doing, what they were building, and everything. And as a kid, I wasn't really paying much attention.
And what sort of age were you when
well,
that was
it was always in my life, from very little all the way up, because the company got sold in the 80s, but my adoptive father continued working in the concrete industry, but he wasn't part of the family firm, if you like, the family concrete company, but he worked for other concrete companies. I've since found out that there is a patent for mixing blood with concrete for consistency of the concrete. I never knew that you could mix blood with concrete, but there is a patent for it.
Now, are you suggesting that's just a way of getting rid of a lot of blood?
I'm saying that's how they got rid of the blood, because I couldn't work out. When I found out about the patent for concrete being mixed with blood, explained to me what they did with all the blood, that they were sacrificing humans. These people, they were sacrificing humans, and I never knew how they got rid of the blood. There's a lot of blood, and how they got rid of the bodies and that type of thing, because it's very difficult to get rid of a body, or all those bodies and stuff, you see.
What sort of quantities are you talking about here?
Well, they would like, well, the thing is, in the tunnels and stuff, I mean, they would take, was taken to them, and
okay, let's go down into the detail here. And what about the stuff, the tunnels and stuff? Let's go right in there as far as we can.
Well, the tunnels were like, you would be like, I'd be taken to them, the tunnels and stuff.
Who would take you them, and how? From where?
Well, the father who adopted me would be taking me to these places that were building stuff, buildings, or the tunnel works, that kind of thing. And then you'd be going into down the levels.
How deep? How far down?
It seemed quite far, actually. It seemed very far
and
down.
How would you know you were going down far? Was it a lift? Or?
It was a lift. Sorry, yes, a lift.
And how many buttons does it have on that?
Well, it was like it wasn't like a conventional lift that you have in a building. It was like a kind of lift you'd have. Well, there was like there was a sort of wall of buttons, where you put the buttons for an elevator and things, and there's quite a number of buttons going on this.
What are you talking about? 10 or 12 or 20?
Well, I've been in the Sydney Tower, and that's got quite a number of buttons. Or you go to the Empire State Building, or what was the World Trade Centre. There's like a buttons like that. Have you been in the World?
Have you been there?
I've been in those, yes. I've been in the World Trade Centre before it went, and I've been in the Empire State Building, and I've been in the Sydney Tower, the tall tower in Sydney, the tallest one in Australia, I think.
I mean, those kind of towers usually have, like you go past a lot of stuff. Maybe 50. They have only. It doesn't necessarily have a lift per floor, but.
No, but in the Empire State Building, or.
Yeah.
Yes, they don't have a lift a button per floor. The Empire State, I'm just sort of saying the buttons would look like with, say, these tunnels and stuff.
Now, what sort of buttons? Because there's different styles of buttons and electrical things which are made in different generations. You've got stuff that looks from the 50s, stuff that looks
I'd say it was
60s.
more.
Is there a different style to paint?
Well, I wouldn't say they were modern,
Yeah.
like now, like you have now. I'd say it's more like 70s, maybe even going back 50s.
I mean, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for different styles which indicate that such and such a building or facility was built at a certain era.
Mm-hmm.
And did you see markedly different
Yes.
differences in that, indicating different ages?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And let's go further on that.
So yes. So this is because my adoptive father worked in the concrete industry in all kinds of countries all around the world, and the fact that my birth father has dual nationality. He's got an Australian dual nationality. He also has a lot of dealings in Australia.
So that's British and
Australia. Their sister is in Australia. She moved to Australia in the 70s. She's a Justice of the Peace. I don't know if she still is a Justice of the Peace in Australia. But then there's a branch of the family in Australia as well who own a television company over there, and I think a record company. Well, there's links with the record company as well, and a television company, and there's connections.
Is that one of the main broadcast companies or some kind of facilities?
Well, my aunt, her son works for 9News. He's a cameraman, but she's a Justice of the Peace. She owns a publishing company in Australia. They set it up in the 70s. Now, her brother, my natural father, he had companies in Australia, and I think it was a building company in Australia. So there was building going on. There was supplying of concrete in Australia, and Tasmania, and New Zealand as well. That part of the world as well. So we've got South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and then all the way up to Canada and America, of course. They would supply concrete to, it'd be New York, Washington, Florida. They had a lot of dealings with Florida, New York, Philadelphia. Sorry?
Again, I mean, when they say they would supply concrete, I mean, would they be a company who would supply concrete from local resources, or would this stuff be shipped?
I think it was local and shipped. Yeah. Obviously, they had to they had to have cement works, gravel pits to get the supplies from which country it was. You can't just ship over a whole load of sand across the water.
Did the gravel pits have, or the resources where they got the concrete, were there any specific, specially, odd locations where that stuff would come from on any kind of energy field or energy line?
Well, in Britain, in the UK, I never went to the cement works in America. I just know they had connections in America. They were doing dealings in America and things. So where these gravel pits, if you call them gravel, these pits were, I don't know. But I do know that they were doing stuff in the places I mentioned, like Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, New York, Washington, Washington DC rather, because there's two Washingtons in America.
One's East Coast, one's West Coast.
Yes. So it seemed to be more Washington DC, New York, Jersey, Pennsylvania, that part of America. There was mention of Alaska. So in Britain...
Which part of Alaska?
That I do not know.
Oh.
They just mentioned Alaska. But in Britain, the gravel pits in Britain, which they owned, the cement things, were near Seal, near Reading. There was a couple there. Buckinghamshire. That's basically where the cement, what should you call it, cement factory was as well. And there's gravel pits around there somewhere. Are they on ley lines? Probably. Yes. There's nothing. I don't know if there's any sort of connections that way in that respect. But yes, where they were digging, getting the gravel, yes, I'd say it's probably on sort of ley lines or something like that.
So was there any particular buildings or tunnels which you mentioned these tunnels? Tell us all about the tunnels.
Well,
you also mentioned Peasemore, but
yeah, they used to do stuff near Peasemore, Aldermaston, Porton Down. That I know there was sort of tunnels from around Porton Down, Peasemore, also going into Wiltshire as well, near the Longleat Park, Animal Park, the house there.
And Warminster, that's Warminster's right.
That's Warminster, yeah. The Marquis of Bath was part of the group, who's now passed away. The old Duke of Marlborough, he was part of the group, who's passed away now. His son is now the Duke of Marlborough.
To be very clear, part of which group?
Sorry, the group that bought me, who is international, and they're also in UK. They're an international group, so there's a lot of people.
Do you have any evidence to support these claims that you're making?
Well, evidence. I have evidence that I was abused because the police. I was examined by the police doctor, who said, "Yes, you have scarring. Yes, you were abused." And so that's what I have for that. That's the sort of evidence I have there. Evidence of. Sorry, evidence of what? Sorry, because I've got evidence of the fact that...
Of connecting certain individuals you've named who've now deceased with this group.
Well, they were sort of socialising with them, really, and they were like part of the group. I have memories of these people coming to these sort of occasions, if you like.
And what occasions? Describe them.
Like these... you could call them like parties, but they weren't really they were different kind of parties that you would expect.
I think the public would know them as eyes wide shut parties.
Yes, sorry, like that. Yes, sorry. Just like the eyes wide shut. Rituals, yes, kind of thing. Yes. Where everyone's dressed up in...
What happened at those parties?
Well, like, they would do the... Well, the children would all be... as children, we would go off into sort of like a different room, so all the children together. The adults were in another room, in their party, wherever they're doing their thing.
What age were you at this time? What's the sort of age range of the children?
Well, the children go anything up to 15, 14, down to baby. Little thing, babies.
How many are you talking about?
Maybe, well, any time it would be about 10 kids, or, 5.
Did they have some kind of supervisor, or have you ever heard?
Just older children, teenagers. Older, they're talking like 16, 17. The older ones would be monitoring, would be supervising the younger ones, type of thing.
And did all the children come back?
Well, the thing is, we all went to the same school. So we all went to the same primary school. So yes, they came back. There were some children that were kind of brought in, but I never saw them again. But they were I would have told they were visiting, and they were just visitors. And the children I went to school with, we would all be at the... we would all come back, yes, because we went to the same school, socialised together, that type of thing. Then you had the visitor children, who... No, I never saw them again. And they'd go off when there was this party sort of event going on.
Did they have a certain expectation or look about them?
The children?
Yeah.
They just kind of looked... They looked nervous. They didn't really kind of speak or anything. They didn't like... Well, I don't know, they didn't look like... they didn't look happy being there. But you'd think they were just wanting their mums or their dads, or didn't want to be there, really.
I mean, is there anything you can read from the body language of the people there?
Well, the children were... very nervous. They were just very quiet, very zoned out. If you see what I mean, not
I mean,
quite
do you think
there.
they were on drugs or something?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there was a lot of drugs. I mean,
Such as?
Well, I was prescribed barbiturates from age 7, and I got this prescription, and it was a prescription from the doctors because my adoptive mother worked at the local doctor's surgery in the pharmacy department. So I was prescribed barbiturates from age 7, and that went on till about, I don't know, 11, because I asked my GP when I got older, and I said, I want to see my medical records, and they said, well, we have to read them with you. And the GP was looking at my medical records, not my original GP obviously, and she just said, why were you on barbiturates from age 7? And I said, I don't know. Because she was like, well, you shouldn't be put on that drug from age 7 through to, what was it, 12, 14, I think it was, when I left this country to go to Oman. I think that's when it stopped. But yeah, the GP couldn't understand why I was given this prescription for barbiturates, and I didn't really know at the time what barbiturates were and what they did to you. So then I went and looked into it. But I was told when I was a little girl that, oh, you know, I had to take a tablet every night, one little tablet every night. And I asked the GP, I said, would that barbiturate tablet, would it be a little tablet? She said, yes. So I was given one every night before going to bed. I was told it was because I couldn't sleep. I was told that I was a child that wouldn't sleep. So that's why I had to have them. I told the GP this, and I said, well, I was told I couldn't sleep. She said, you don't give children your age 7 that tablet, that barbiturate every night. So when
What effect would that have? Did
well,
they say that?
What effect it had on me was I was zoning out at school during the day. I was hallucinating. I couldn't stay awake at daytime. You know, I was really zoned out and everything. I would say that my learning ability was quite hindered in certain ways.
Well, surely the school would have picked up on this.
The school was part of it.
Okay.
The primary
Which school?
It was Whitchurch Primary School.
Now, the other thing is that somebody who was with James was an Egyptian guy called Savile. Are you familiar with him?
Did you say Sahel?
Yes, Savile.
Well, it rings a bell. There is an Egyptian connection, yes. I mean,
I'd say, when I say Egyptian, I'd say Arab in some way.
Yeah, there is Egyptian connection and everything, because one of the group worked in Egypt and was in Egypt basically, I would say, to get connections there, you know, that type of thing. Sahel doesn't ring a bell, that name, but there was Egyptian connections with the group as well, because there was Egyptian people, families, that kind of thing, that moved into the village and out of the village, that type of thing. There were connections to perhaps, sorry.
Swainswick?
Sorry?
Have you been to Swainswick, I think it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Could you say anything more about Swainswick?
No, I can't remember that.
And just for the record, where is roughly Swainswick?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I'd have to look into it and try and uncover it in my head, if you see what I mean.
I think it's not a million miles from Bath.
Bath. Right. Yeah.
And Rudlow Manor.
Sorry?
And Rudlow Manor.
Rudlow Manor. I mean, I know there was things at Donington Castle and at Blenheim Palace.
What do you mean by things?
Sorry. rituals would happen at Blenheim Palace and Donington Castle.
What type of rituals?
Well, there's these sort of like the masked rituals, satanic ritual type things, where people would put the masks on, and then there'd be like like Masonic or satanic kind of rituals going on, where they would have like the circle of people, and then you'd have people, women or children in the middle of the circle, performing sexual acts and everyone watching. There would be an altar where they would put a young child or young girl on the altar, and then there would be the sacrifice there.
Okay.
They'd have like a dagger thing or sword or whatever. And that's what I'm meaning by these kind of parties.
Do you want to go
like.
into that in more detail?
What
And I'd also like to ask, what do they eat at these parties?
They would eat the sacrifice victim. They would pull the heart out, the beating heart. They would eat that. They'd eat the animals they sacrificed as well. There was animals and stuff.
What do you mean by and stuff?
Animals and humans, children, babies, little babies and stuff, little babies.
Have you heard of the term cobble?
Coddle.
Cobble.
Cuddle.
C-O-B-L-E, I think it is.
Yes.
And what do you know about that?
Well, from what I know of cobble, is they would like... You mean like the cooking of it, or the taking of the...
Yes, exactly. What do you
the
know
butchering.
about it?
I
Yeah.
call it butchering. Now, you could say, well, sacrifice. I say butcher. Yeah?
Yeah.
They would cut them up.
And what sort of things were they looking for?
Well, they would cut them up. What I mean is take the heart out, beating heart and everything. That was very a prized thing to do. Then they would then they'd start the bloodletting, if you like, meaning, cutting the wrist like you do, and so the blood would come out, pour out type of thing. They'd all have that, drink that and everything.
Is that with the heart still beating?
Yes. Well, they took the heart out with the heart beating.
Yeah.
Like a heart operation.
Yeah.
And then they would take the skin off. That's like flaying the body, flaying it.
But
and
is it
everything.
still sent alive?
Yes.
So the heart is still
the heart's
beating?
taken out.
But it's still beating?
Yes. But they'd be eating it, the heart.
Yeah.
As it were. I mean, eventually it would stop, obviously.
So they're eating a living, beating heart?
Beating heart. And the liver, or organs actually, I'm just not
Raw.
Organs, yes. And of course the brain and the...
And how was that performed? How was that?
Well, they'd like skin them. Alive, yeah. And then so take the heart out, the organs out, the heart out and everything. The brain, it would be more like, I would describe it more like a lobotomy type thing, where they slice maybe the top of the head off, the skull,
Yeah.
to get into the brain. Yeah. Or go up through the throat area, or the back of the neck, that way into the skull, type of thing. Yeah. Probably a bit like the Egyptians did when they were doing the mummies and everything.
Except these were living...
They were living.
These were living people.
Children. Babies. Babies and things. Yeah, they were living, and they would be skinning them alive, and like I said, draining the blood and everything, doing that.
And were there any things done with the blood or anything? Or were these organs?
They were drinking it.
Yeah.
Sorry, they were drinking the blood.
Yeah.
And the organ, well, eating it really, eating the organs, that type of thing.
Now, the people who were eating the organs, were they all human, or did they change shape?
Oh right, yeah, okay. What would happen is they would be doing all this stuff, and then there would be some kind of shape-shifting sort of going on. Yes, it wouldn't be like...
Explain that in detail.
It wouldn't be like they were human, and then it's like a hologram type thing, and that kind of image of a human being would kind of like disappear, and underneath would be like...
Can you describe how kind of like is? What would happen?
Well, it's like you're looking at the human, and then what you're seeing with your eyes is like a human being, like a normal human being, and then it's suddenly that face going away, and underneath is the... When I say underneath, it's like behind that is like a lizard type of
what I'm looking
being.
at is something where it's sort of like it shimmers.
Yes,
it
that's
sort
what
of shimmers
as
if bits of it sort of start.
You know, like a hologram.
Yeah.
Or Star Trek. You know when they used to arrive on this flight deck from their clock things, that kind of effect, like like that, yeah.
Yeah.
So they would like this kind of be like a wave going like this, and then you'd see the real being, and the human that you saw didn't exist anymore because it faded away, and underneath, behind that face, was this reptile thing.
Now there's two ways. There's two ways of doing this. The creature or the reptile, it's physically different from the word go, but it just gives you it tells your mind that it's different, and then you have the ones which project as humans, but then there's two ways of doing it.
Well, they'd grow in height, so it's like...
Now, could you explain or the detail of what you saw in terms of the differences of these beings?
Well, they would... All right, first of all, I saw the lizard thing. First of all, it'd be lizard, reptilian type beings.
And are we talking a vertical crocodile thing with a big tail, or what different characteristics? The facial things, the ridges on the skull,
Well, it'd be like... it would be like... Did you say crocodile? It's like
there's the croc look, then there's the Draco difference.
It would be like the crocodile, only more with this more stunted nose, snout. Okay, so you could say like a lizard, because a crocodile's got a very long snout, so it's more squashed in than that. So it's like a vertical kind of crocodile.
Would they have a tail?
Yes, because when they went through this shimmering, if you call it, the shimmering, when the human went away, then of course the being would be exposed. You'd see the whole thing, the tail, the claw, the hands, the feet, the legs, that type of thing. Yes.
Now, would they walk?
And the eyes.
When they walked, would they sort of walk like a shuffling butler, like a penguin, or would they walk with firm, long strides? As if you've got a properly separated.
It wasn't quite human.
Yeah. Like
a human would walk. It was a bit like a... Well, I wouldn't say shuffling either. It was kind of, a bit more stomping, if you see what I mean. I would equate it to like... well, you see all these movies and everything, which are some are very real, very true, but it would be like more of a stamping type walk.
Now, when you say some movies, there's been Jupiter Rising, I think is one of the...
I've not seen that.
Right, okay, well,
I've
suggest the movies that you would say are real, and then suggest the movies which you would say aren't.
V, the old TV series, that's probably more real than we know. The new V is different to the original one, but I suppose both are very, very real.
Now, it's interesting that V is continually running on as a full series on the British Forces Network that you can watch here. So if you watch the British Forces Network, V is very likely to be on the air. I was wondering maybe if there's a connection there with the military and these shape-shifting reptilians, and that's why they run that on the TV. It's just not a science fiction series. It's got another reason for being there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't know that the military played V.
Well, they play quite a lot of pretty good science fiction, some pretty good old movies and stuff. Sapphire and Steel, UFO, These are Jerry Anderson sort of TV series, but they're also running some pretty advanced science fiction, and it seems that it would have some kind of introduction to the military for the purposes of getting as far as they can go on their TV network,
climatising them to these beings type of thing. Yes, probably.
So again, which movies would be closest to reality, and which movies wouldn't be that you know of?
There's V. Just trying to think, sorry. It'll come to me, sorry. I'm just trying to think of all the TV things, because I've never seen that one you've mentioned.
Jupiter Rising has a lot of stuff about greys and stuff, and the hierarchy of things, and they milk the living life force out of us, and they live a very long time, and they're based on they've got a base on Jupiter, which is one of the things.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I'd say that you got the Dark Crystal, those puppets. Now, not the bad ones, not the good ones. The bad ones, which are called are those Skeksis or something. Those creatures. They look very like that, like them. Not the good ones, the ones with the big nose and everything. No, the other ones, the evil ones.
Such as the ones to kill so-called Draco. There's a difference in reptile. There's a Draco reptilian and then the Draco collective, and you got reptilians who are meant to be okay now. They've been given some kind of autonomy as a species, because they're out of the Draco collective mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Hive mind.
Well, those ones in the Dark Crystal, the puppets that were the bad ones. When I went to these, when I was at these rituals and stuff, when it all shimmered, if you like, they would change into those type things. That's the only thing I can liken it to. And the Dark Crystal, the evil ones, should we say, not the other ones, and they look very like that. Yes. So, like I know.
Have you seen the final series of the Star Trek thing? There's the new version. There's a version called Star Trek Enterprise, which was 2001 to 2005.
Yeah.
There's some pretty good renditions of. Have you seen any of that? Reptilians.
I haven't watched any of those. I've watched the original Star Trek.
Yeah, Captain Kirk. Yeah, everybody's seen that.
Yeah, I watched that one. The other Star Treks, no, I didn't watch many of those. Actually, I got a bit bored of them, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Deep Space Nine.
I like Battlestar Galactica.
Now, which version of Battlestar Galactica?
Well, I saw the first film.
Yeah.
I saw the films and stuff and things. But I didn't watch this TV series of Battlestar Galactica, no. The films, yes.
Yeah. Oh, you mean Star Wars?
No, Battlestar Galactica.
Okay. Are you talking about the
I saw Star Wars, sorry, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And Star Trek. Star Wars, I'm trying to think on Star Wars and any sort of reptilian creatures on that. I mean, Star Wars is very, probably very close to truth anyway.
In terms of demonic.
Demonic. Well, yeah, you got
Before we leave the parties, any other types of beings there?
Well, like I say, with
Very tall ones.
yes, with Star Wars. Sorry, you know the bar with all the aliens and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I would see these reptilian things, and these things like the Dark Crystal. I think they're called Skeksis, those evil ones. You see those, and then the Star Wars bar scene. You had there was an alien in that. I think it was a woman, female, and she was like, I think blue skin.
Yeah.
That one. There would be certain ones of that at this thing as well, and like that, or Avatar. You know, the movie Avatar.
Yeah.
Yes, there was some like that, blue, type creatures or alien. Right.
I mean, did they look
beings.
more human? I mean, that might be quite.
Well, they look like the Avatar ones, really. I mean, they're kind of human.
In terms of the skin texture and stuff like that.
No, it was a bit more like the blue ones were a bit more. Skin texture was a bit more sort of scaly type skin. You know, like our skin. If you look close up to our skin, you can see it's not exactly scales, but you know, like that. But it was more like that kind of skin. You could say scaly or whatever. Our perception of it. And then in the Star Wars, the bar thing, you know, those.
That's the first Star Wars one.
Yes, sorry, yes, with Harrison Ford and the first one. Sorry, that bar scene. Not I haven't seen the other Star Wars or whatever, but that
we
one.
can only go by what you've seen.
New Hope.
What do you mean by the new V series? What is there a difference between the new V series? What's the difference there?
The modern V series, when they remade it, wasn't as it wasn't. The original one was very like what I had seen. You know, when they take the skin off, you know, the mice like this and everything. The new one, they got it quite off actually. Yeah. So
that's a big deal now.
Because the new one, the original one, was what I saw. You know, with the taking the skin off and everything. Yes, they did the shimmering, but then there was also the ones that would take the bodysuit off, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
Which is what I mean by the two different types, the sort of shimmering ones which project something which make you think that they're different.
Mm-hmm. And then you had the ones that just took the bodysuit off, you know, the human bodysuit.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
What about greys and aliens? And and all that.
So there was like the blue. The
and I'm going to say tall whites. Did you?
And the tall whites, yes. And then you had the little grey aliens, yes.
Well, let's go into each version of these, and these are all present at these Eyes Wide Shut parties.
Yes. Where
they feast on humans and babies and children and things.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure about the greys, the little greys, if they did.
Do you have experience of those?
Oh yeah, they were there, and they would come. There was one time they, I don't know, I was in my bed, and they came to my bedroom. And what I mean by that is, it was like they came to my bedroom, and I was younger. So I've had them visit me there. Yes, and they were at this the party thing. I could say party, but that ritual. They were there as well, but they weren't really. They were little though. They weren't like tall grey aliens and stuff. But maybe they were the offspring or something. Maybe they were children. The ones I saw.
Did they have round eyes?
Yes, they had the black.
Did they have the round eyes or the almond eyes?
Black almonds, yeah, like that. And then you had the. But they weren't. But the whites were. They were very tall actually.
Now, when
Yeah.
you say tall, and what do you mean by white?
Well, I'm 6 foot, and
And what do you mean by white?
well, I'm 6 foot, and
Yeah.
much taller than that. I mean, we're talking about my adoptive father, my real father. He's 7 foot.
Now, he's a normal human, is he?
No, because he shapeshifted into a lizard type.
Explain
creature
that.
thing. Well, he shapeshifted. He shapeshifted
Your
into a
real
lizard
father.
thing. My real father, yeah.
I mean, you've heard of Simon Parkes,
Yes. Yes, I have.
and
I haven't listened to all his. I know about him now since last year, with what happened last year. You won't mention that. But you know, I've heard it.
What do you mean
but
you
I knew
won't
him at the
mention
beginning.
that?
Sorry,
you didn't want to mention that.
the election last year.
You're referring to something in the United States.
Pardon?
You're talking about some kind of.
The thing in America, yes. But the Simon Parkes, I heard his stories before last year, before this came out, when he was talking about his alien experiences and stuff. Now I haven't really seen the cat people alien ones. Like he mentions, I've seen more like the greys and the very tall white ones, and then the ones that are like very blonde hair, blue eyes. I saw those as well.
Okay, where did you see all these different types of beings?
Well, they were like some. Okay, we got the ritual party thing, and then at the tunnels that I was taken to, you had various beings down there, like the ones with the blonde hair and the blue eyes, very piercing blue eyes, and they were very tall, very, very tall. Because I'm used to all these tall people around me. Because, like I say, the family I was adopted to, they were tall on the male side of the family. My father's side of the family, the men were very, very tall. And then and then the women were tall, but the woman who adopted me, she was average height, 5'4". Yeah, but the other ones were all quite tall. We were loads of tall people there and everything. So then there was a connection to that part of the family with the Aldermaston giants, who have died off now. But there is a church in Aldworth, and there's a church there with the giants there. You can go and visit it and everything.
Are these like 3 meters high?
Well, they were considered giants in the day because they were tall. I mean, the family seems to have died off now, but the Aldworth giants kind of reached heights of probably about, for their time, very, very tall. So about 6 foot, maybe 7 foot, could even be taller. And you can go to the church and you can see them, you know, their crypts and stuff and stuff. And so the Aldworth giants, so this family I'm talking about, they were all very, very tall. And I do believe there is a connection to some kind of giant alien beings or something, maybe. Yeah? Because the family name is connected to, well, Ireland. Okay, and I think Southern Ireland. My ex-husband's family were connected to Northern Ireland. And this side of the family, because the family name is Brazil, well, they pronounce it Brazil like the country, but it's actually Brazil, and that's connected to Ireland, Southern Ireland. And my ex's family were Logue, and that's connected to Northern Ireland. So the family Brazil, I believe is connected to High Brazil, the mystical island that comes and goes, disappears and everything.
That's about 300 miles off the southwest corner.
Yes, and that's
of Cork.
where they come from.
Explain all that. Explain your connection with that.
Well, High Brazil, okay, the family name is Brazil, yeah. And that
How do you spell that?
Pardon?
How do you spell that?
Brazil, Brazil,
Okay.
like Brazil. Yeah? And that part of the family come from that part of Ireland. Did you say southwest?
It's southwest.
Southwest.
County
Islands,
Kerry, Cork.
County Kerry, Cork, Ballycotton, Cork, Ballycotton, that part of Ireland. Yeah.
Skellig Michael.
Yes. Ballymallow, Ballycotton, Ballymallow,
And what's the? That's where Ryan's Daughter was all filmed.
Oh.
And
Was
also that area was used
They
for
have a house
for the
there.
remake of Star Wars
Yes.
when Disney got hold of it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So he was on.
Skellig Michael.
They have a holiday home in that part of Ireland, and they used to holiday there and everything. And then there's a gypsy encampment camp near Aldermaston, and their surname is Brazil. There's a lot of Brazils in that part of Ireland anyway. I think
Tell
it's
us
the whole
all
town
about
of it.
High Brazil.
Hybrid, no, sorry. I think that because of the connection with the Brazil name in that part of Ireland, maybe those people came from High Brazil, or they
Or
escaped
still
or
do.
something.
Come and
or
go.
Still do. Sorry.
Maybe they still do.
Yeah, I think they do, and I think maybe the island is still around or something.
Well, what do you know about that? What does that? Do the family? Do they know about that? Because we're now going antediluvian. We're now talking about Atlantis.
Well, whenever
Are
I go,
we talking about Atlantis?
well, whenever I go to Ireland, whenever I go near there, they would say, oh, one of the special people, the people there view that name as very special, magical. It's kind of very connected to the Tuatha De Danann, and I can't pronounce that, I'm sorry.
I'm a little bit like that myself. Explain on that, because James Casbolt has a whole connection there as well. Do you want to go into all that? Ancient humanity, ancient times, before the Great Catastrophe.
Well, High Brazil, as far as I know, there was a war, and I can't remember the names of the two clans or something, but then you had the Tuatha De Danann, and the goddess, I think she was Tuatha De Danann, the goddess or something, came from High Brazil, or they fled to High Brazil or something, and there was this war. This is ancient history of Ireland and everything, and I think that the Tuatha De Danann come from the goddess. I think she was called the Duanon. I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry. Duane, and she was the leader, the goddess, or something like that, or considered a goddess. But when I went to the place, the holiday home in Ireland, near Ballymallow and Ballycotton, the people there would kind of, they knew my family, and then they would treat me very differently to, say, anyone else, because it was like, well, you're one of the magic people. That's what they call us, magic people. I don't know why. I was considered one of the magic people or something, but they were very, they respected them quite a lot, actually. Or maybe they were scared of them, I don't know. Because you've got the family in Aldermaston, there's a gypsy camp in Aldermaston. The surname there is Brazil, who used to work for the Brazil concrete factory as well. They had a lot of them working for them as well, sort of thing, but all connected to Ireland, Southern Ireland as well. Maybe the gypsies were useful, that part of the clan were useful to do the
No, exactly.
trafficking.
What are you referring to there?
Sorry?
What do you refer
Human
to?
trafficking. Because you've got fun fairs and stuff, and human trafficking, manoeuvring people around, children around, or women around, that type of thing, because gypsies it's quite easy to then move from county to county, from Ireland to Britain, to even go to America, that type of thing. Although I don't think gypsies go from Ireland to America as gypsies as such, no. Even
What do you think?
As well.
What do you know?
Sorry?
What do you think and what do you know?
I know that they probably, I just know that they worked for Brazil Concrete, the concrete company. And then not only that, Brazil Concrete, not only did they own Brazil Concrete, they owned the Brazil sausages and the pork factory, pork pie factory, and they would make pork sausages and stuff like that. So they had pig farms and things. And then, so yeah, we had the pork. There was a pork.
What are you suggesting by meat factory and pork?
Well, I think that it was very convenient to have a connection to cement and pork farms and stuff, because you can feed pigs anything.
So you're saying that you could get rid of the ritual...
You could dispose of the human meat with the pork, or you could feed the human remains to the pigs, because pigs would eat that.
Or just put the human remains straight into sausages?
Or sausages, yeah. Pork pies, sausages.
Sweeney Todd?
Yes. So there is a pie shop in Reading called Sweeney Todd, and so they would.
Now let's be very careful here. I mean, what are you suggesting here?
Well,
we're dealing with livelihood here and all that. I mean,
I know. I'm not saying that they have human stuff there, but I just know that they would like to perhaps use that particular pie shop. It was very popular for them, but it is a running business right now, so I'm very loath to put any blackening on it.
Very serious. Now you've said Reading, and also I'm getting a little message in my head. Peasemore, Barry King's data on Peasemore. You mentioned Peasemore and Casbolt. What's the whole deal there? What do you know about that?
What, Peasemore?
Yeah.
Well, they did contracts in Peasemore.
Who?
The company. They would do the concrete going to Peasemore and stuff. They did a lot there. What
do you mean by a lot?
They'd supply lots of concrete to the area, to Peasemore. I was taken to, there's a base there. I mean, it's a military base.
Let's be very clear about this. I've done videos with Barry King and James Casbolt about Peasemore, and the grid keeper and Duncan Davis and James Casbolt and Sophia all went up there in 2007 and found the base. And a TR-3B came down and wiggled around and said, "Hi guys." Now, they also said that we've got taken to the base and have a similar screen memory to Matt Todd, who was exposed to things in certain bases. But what do you know about Peasemore?
Well, I was taken, there's a base there, and we go into the base. And,
where?
At Peasemore.
Just a little bit, where do you go in?
Well, it was like there's fencing around and everything, like a usual base thing, and go through the gates and stuff, and then
Are you talking RAF Welford or Newbury?
Newbury, sorry.
Sorry.
Newbury.
Greenham Common.
Yeah, near Greenham Common, yeah. Near where the women used to protest. Because they used to laugh at those women. The group would laugh at them.
Why would they laugh at them?
Because they thought they were nutters. They didn't agree with what they were doing. The women, the protesters at Greenham Common, they said they were just hippies and didn't respect them at all. There has
been talk about them being used in mind control experiments. They were doing microwave thing on them. And I mean, is that true?
Well, all I know is they'd laugh at them, and they would say they would just
the soldiers. Who would laugh at them?
My family, my father's, the two men, they would laugh at them. And actually, everyone in the village would laugh at these Greenham Common women. I never understood that because I thought I agreed with the protesters actually.
Of Greenham Common.
Greenham Common, yeah.
And then what happened? You went into a tunnel. You were taken there by.
Well, taken to the base, and then it would be.
What do you mean by the base?
It was like a army base, Air Force army base. I know the two don't go together, but there were jets there, and there were soldiers there, and so you had like a combination of the two. You had like.
So that's Greenham Common.
Greenham Common, Peasemore, yeah. I know the army and the Air Force don't really mix as such, but we're talking like Air Force base and army base combined.
Right. If I said RAF Welford.
Yeah. Because our Newbury one, yes, I know about we went to the Newbury one. Welford, yes, I know about that as well.
What do you know about Welford?
Well, we go to the thing is you had tunnels. I'd be going to Welford. I'd be taken to Welford, and the Newbury base as well. And again, like I say, it was not. You go through this sort of gates and things, but it was Army and Air Force combined, the two together. And I don't know how that can happen because they don't usually combine the two, the Army and the Air Force.
Were there any special differences in the uniform, any logos or signature?
Well, the uniforms were, you could tell it was Army or Air Force because the Army side, I say side because it'd be one side would be Army and one side would be Air Force. So there was a divide between the two, but they would mix.
Is that, because of logistics, like canteens or weapon storage or what?
No, because they shared it all. Yeah, they shared everything. It was all shared, if you see what I mean. So the Air Force
shared?
Well, the Air Force people would, they'd have access to the army side for the weaponry and stuff, for ammunition and things. Not that they used much of that, but they would combine the two. You know, the vehicles and
we're
stuff.
We're just talking about practical things like rifles and...
Yeah, rifles, ammunition, that type of thing. Uniform, well, it looked like some of them had like a black uniform. You had the army uniform, usual regular British Army uniform, and then you had the usual British regular Air Force uniform, and then you had because there were Americans there too, so you had the American base was combined as well. So you had the American Army and the American Air Force and the British Air Force and the British Army all combined together.
And where did this happen?
Well, it seemed to be like a base in Newbury, and there's some, and the other one was there's Newbury and Welford. Yes, but it wasn't like, because you had the army base over here, and then we would drive around, and then you go to what I call the combination of all of it in one thing. You know, the Americans and the British and everything, and probably other countries as well, probably. But there was some that were wearing black, a bit like the old, like the German uniform when they had the black. Was that the SS or something? Or I have no idea about uniforms.
Are you suggesting, I'm suggesting, were they actually German uniforms to this day? Fourth Reich, so to speak.
Well, I know those uniforms. It looked very like that. Like the old, is that the Fourth Reich? Because
well, the
the
World
Third
War
Reich,
II,
sorry.
Third Reich, yeah.
Yeah, they were like that, like the German black uniforms.
SS.
The SS, thank you, yes, SS, yeah. They had the SS
and when was this? Because obviously
thing.
Greenham Common has been closed for quite some time. It's now being used for Star Wars movies as a set. They've also taken up a lot of the concrete and stuff like that. Talked about concrete. So I mean, what era are we talking about?
So late 70s, 80s. Yeah. Well, Brazil concrete was sold off in late 80s. So that kind of, that stopped, connected with that family. They weren't supplying concrete anymore, because in 1982, I think, it was sold for quite a few million. It got sold to Wimpy, I think. I think Wimpy bought it.
Or Wiltshire Concrete's quite a big company.
Yeah, I don't know if Wiltshire Concrete had anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I just know Brazil Concrete got sold off, I think, to Wimpy. Yes, Wimpy and Ready Mix, I think, or some company. I'm sure it was Wimpy actually that bought it.
So what do you know of the different personnel, and what about the Peasemore thing? You mentioned something about Peasemore and human trafficking and tunnels and all that, the underground tunnel network.
Well, so we had there's this combined base. I'm going to call it a combined base because, like I said, there was Air Force, Army. I'm not going to say Navy because I don't think, well, obviously it wasn't anywhere near the ocean, so, but it was just the uniforms, the black uniforms, and then you had different level.
Was there any inverted triangle type symbols you saw anywhere?
Well, those like chevrons. I don't know if you call it a chevron.
The way that the sergeant logo.
Yeah, that. Yes, you got the on the lapel thing, this yellow thing going down like a V thing going down here. I don't know what that's called. Sorry, but when you got on the lapel, the shoulder thing, and it's like a yellow V thing like this. Is it chevrons that go down like that? Yeah? Yeah, like that. And then the badge, if you call it a badge, on the uniform. And it was like very like the German uniforms back in the war, but maybe more like the SS kind of uniform. But, with the German thing, it wasn't a swastika as such, but it was like an eagle, more like Russian, but you've got the two-headed eagle looking either way, yeah?
Yeah.
And then the thing behind it, like a stripy thing behind it. It was a two-headed eagle type thing looking either way sort of thing. The only thing I can equate that to was like Romania, I think, had that on their flag, or
the ancient. Well, we could look that up. Maybe ancient Austro-Hungarian Empire
or Hungarian.
Austro-Hungarian Empire.
I don't know if it was Romanian before the leader got rid of that one, or even Poland. But of course that would mix up. That would go with. But it's more German.
Who did you feel was in charge?
Well, it's like you had the different people. So if you got the like what you call it, the sergeant and the captain and all of that.
Majors and generals
and stuff. Yeah. But there was like the humans of this combined base thing, yeah. But then there were other humans, the tall ones that would be there kind of shouting orders or doing commands to the human beings, So these ones were
who are the tall ones, and was this all underground?
Yes.
And did it have a name? There were any name anywhere?
Not that I can remember, no.
Any things on corridor walls or train?
Well,
How did you move about?
There was a train system. So I apologise. There was like the underground. The London Underground's very clunky. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's got more high speed now, but it was very clunky, wasn't it, sort of thing. And then you've got the high speed trains now, like that, underground. So, you know how we have these electric trains now that are quite fast? Well, a bit faster, very fast little trains underground, yes.
And when you mean by fast, how far would they go? I mean, where would you... there must have been some kind of ID. I mean, AL499, that's going to be...
AL4...
AL499, I think, is what is referred to as Peasemore. So that would be the base number. Any numbers like that?
It was more like...
I mean, you've got to know when you're going to stop or where you're going to go.
Roman numerals, yeah. And like dashes, like there'd be Roman numerals and then there'd be dashes. So you'd be like, you'd have like, it was... How can I describe it? It's like dashes like that. 1, 2, 3.
//.
Yes, thank you. Yes, There's the dashes and stuff like that. Yes. And not so much numbers. It would be more like Roman numerals.
So the numbers would be in Roman.
Yeah.
Numbers.
And then you've got the dashes, the / type thing. You know, like the modern V or some kind of science fiction program or film, I think it is. And they've got all Taken. That TV series that Steven Spielberg, and I think it's called Taken. Was it Steven Spielberg did that one as well?
Yeah.
And that Taken, they had that coding and stuff, those things. It was like that, like on Taken. That kind of writing and things. So I don't think that on Taken that was kind of come out of someone's imagination.
So where did you go? What did you see? Who did you talk to? And what did you do?
Well, it was like you go down to the tunnels and stuff.
Again, what do you mean by stuff?
Sorry, it's probably a habit of mine. Go down to the tunnels, and there would be these. Yeah, there are high-speed trains. You could call it a train, like a bullet, like the bullet train in Japan. Like that or something. And then it would be like, go down there, and so it'd be different levels and stuff. So we went down to a certain level, and then go into this room, if you could call it a room, and there'd be like very very futuristic, but along the wall, around the walls and stuff, there was like what can I call it? Like a cubicle. It's like Independence Day, the film, the modern film, where they had all these like cubicles full of water, if you could call it water, and things in that. So beings in that kind of water stuff.
And what did they look like those things?
Like you have in the museums, you know, and they put the parts in kind of, what's it called, to keep it, you know, look after it, sort of thing.
Oh, ether, well, it's
something like
that.
And then they'd have to be in there. Various beings would be in these kind of like cubicle type things. I call it a cubicle.
Tubes. I mean, are they alive, or are they just in stasis in some
just
for shipping? Or
just there.
Were they plugged into something?
It seemed to be plugged into something, yeah, like a tube coming from them, from the mouth, what you call it, a mouth.
And how big were they? How tall were they? What did they look like?
They were quite big, but bearing in mind I was they were quite big.
So you were being shown this by your father?
Well, yeah.
What do you mean well? What do you mean well?
My adoptive father.
In other words,
Not-
your so-called
not
human
my-
one.
Yeah. I wouldn't say he was human either, by the way. No.
What would you say he was?
No, he wasn't. He was a demon. More like a demon.
So what's a demon and what's a reptilian, or what's the difference?
I wouldn't say the reptilians are the demons. I would say he was more like a demon, a demon like you get the gargoyles of Notre Dame. There's gargoyles on there, which he looked like. Not a lizard, more like a demon, a demon type creature type thing.
I mean, have you seen a Draco?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what they would look like. I may have seen one.
How big were they?
but I
How
don't-
big are they? Were they big and beefy and strong, or?
Yeah, quite muscular, quite muscular and everything, well built type thing. Yeah.
And you were friendly with this being? Did it talk to you in English? I mean, how did you sort of pass the time of day when you're in these tunnels with them?
It wasn't talking. It was more like thoughts, telepathy.
So what's the purpose of him? What's your purpose now in talking about this? I mean, you're giving a lot of information.
Because
Have you been given some kind of mission to tell people about this?
because
We're
I
referring now to May 2021.
because I tried to have something. I tried to say something about the abuse and stuff 20-something years ago, but I had to shut up. I had to, because my children were threatened, so I had to.
Who threatened them?
The police and social services, and
Some people call the social services the SS. Would you agree with that?
yes, I'd say the SS probably run the social services actually. Yes. So they threatened. Sorry.
Just mind your mic, yeah.
They threatened to take my children away. So I went quiet. I didn't want to say anything else about any of this, because of my children. Now my children are grown up now. It doesn't matter because they're safe now. And my eldest daughter wants me to speak out. And also, I believe there are still children and humans being trafficked, still in the tunnels, still being sacrificed, and it needs to come out. And what if I know something that the good guys don't know? What if I know something and I haven't said anything? And what if these bad people get sorted out, but then they know about the secret stuff that I know about that they don't know about? I want it to stop. I want them to stop doing what they're doing,
So
the trafficking and the eating of humans and stuff.
I was just interested, a particular dish which seems to be served at these things is a bit like a big stuffed turkey on its knees.
What, a human you mean? Like a...
Yeah.
Yeah, like... Well, that's
other
kind
words,
of what it is, yes. It'd be like a...
It's...
If you have like... Well, they'd eat goat, by the way. Goat. And they'd put that on a platter with the goat's head. They'd keep the head and everything very nicely. And then you'd have it would look like, what you said, like a pig. But it'd be a human. You know how you have hog roast? Yeah?
Yeah.
And you stick the whole pig on the hog roast and everything.
Yeah.
Well, they'd do that, but it would be human. Like a hog roast. Well, you have the platter, yes, and there would be like I could say human on the platter, yeah.
Roasted, yeah.
Yeah, because I could have a hot roast, a spit going round and round and everything, and then they'd have they would cook that on the platter, yes. So you could, or a piglet, you'd have a piglet. Well, on the platter it would be like that, but it'd be human.
And you'd have the head separate for you to do whatever. Is that right?
The head would still be attached.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And then they'd serve it like that. Yeah.
And who would do the serving?
Well, the women were revered, so they were above the men. The men were like their slaves. The men were quite happy about that. They would also like, men would be very subservient to the women. The women were very revered and everything. And the men would be, treated like dogs. Like you imagine like a banquet in the medieval times. We'd have all the king and the queen at the end of the table and everything. And then you have the dogs of the castle, come in and eat all the things that have been thrown down. Well, it would be like that, like a banquet like that, only the men, depending on their level of what superiority or something, if they were lower superiority, they would be chained up like a dog, they would chain around their neck, and they would act like a dog, naked, on the ground, picking up the bits off the floor. Yeah?
And how would they establish themselves as some kind of higher level? How would they be classified, or how would they become? And would there be other beings there with them?
Well, the man who adopted me was one of the dogs. He was like that, and he was never going to get any higher. Now his brother, the elder brother, who inherited the concrete factory and the this concrete factory and things. It's a concrete factory and the pork factory. I think he was a very high degree mason as well. And he had a lot of money and everything. He was also a master builder as well, and an MP, or he was trying to become an MP. You see, I don't know if he got voted in. But I think he was a councillor as well. Now, why is he higher up than the dog man? I don't know. I don't know how he got that high up, other than the fact that it was perhaps he was the eldest child in the family, maybe. But I don't quite know how they got to the high levels at all.
And okay, the human males were obviously very low level.
Well, some human males were high up, but they were lower than the women.
Yeah. So what are you saying? Like in the film V, the women were actually reptilians?
Well, the men were as well. So it was almost like, you see, my paternal father, he was a shape-shifting lizard man. I call him the lizard king, right? Now, the dog man, he was more the demon type thing. So perhaps the more lizard reptilian they were, the higher up they were. Yeah? So I would say that's probably how it's decided on how high up they go on the spectrum. And then the women, yeah, they were reptilian as well, yeah. But the women were higher up than the men. They were the ones that were higher than the men.
And what about the status of these other tall whites and were there Pleiadians there, the so-called blondes? Who else was there?
The blondes were there. I don't know if they were Pleiadians, but they were there, yes. But it seemed that the reptile type ones were higher up. They were more aggressive.
I mean, when you say that they were blondes and they were human as well, what else? The blondes, alien? Would they be alien blondes or?
Well,
another race or any?
Well, I've seen it's like they were blondes. They were what I would say was like a normal Viking type look. Yeah, so the blondes, Viking, what we see as Vikings, yeah?
Yeah.
They look like them. Only, very tall. I don't know how tall the Vikings were, but, very tall. So Nordic, yes, Nordic.
And then you had different ones, tall whites. Were they?
Yes. Now,
how do they communicate? How do they all talk? What was it like there?
there's no talking. No talking. It's like, the thing is, there's no talking, but it was almost like in the mind. But you see, the noise was in the mind, if you see what I mean. So it's like going out into the street and you hear loads of people talking and stuff, only it would be in the mind. So in the room, you wouldn't hear any noise like that. It'd be in the head. So it's all telepathic. Yeah. So that's that kind of thing, yeah.
Well, we're sort of coming up to an hour and almost 2 hours.
Okay.
Do you want to take a bit of a rest?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. We'll take a little bit of a rest on that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very serious, the sort of stuff you've been saying, and we want to get as much of that out as possible. That's what you want to have. So we'll... well, that's it for basis 1. I don't know what part it's going to be, but we're going to have a break now. Okay, we're back with Sophia.
So that's as far as I got. So they sold the Brazil Concrete Company in the 80s. Then we moved to Oman. My father got a job in Oman with a concrete company, and then the school, the English-speaking school, closed down in Oman. So I had to either go to boarding school or go to a secondary school here in Britain. So I chose to go to secondary school here, and I went to Deanfield School because we bought a house in Tilehurst, round the corner from Deanfield School, which was round the corner from where James Casbolt lived, and he went to the same school as me, and his house was just around the corner from my house. Now, I know James Casbolt mentioned there was a film made, and something happened with this film.
You're talking about snuff movies?
Yes.
And you're talking about something that was reported to the police?
Yes.
And the police did an analysis of that. I had to report that to the police, and I did, because it involved serious crimes. And they analysed that. But this was all just before James Casbolt went to jail, where he's never to be seen again. And he's forbidden to contact me, so far as I understand. But that this is a completely... James informed a helper at the time, just before his main court case, of this series of crimes, whilst he was a very young child in Reading. And so that was brought to the police's attention, and they basically they didn't cover it up. They investigated it and basically decided not to pursue it. Now, what you're saying is there's more meat to this.
Yes, because my adoptive father, he was an amateur filmmaker, and there was the amateur dramatics group, and there was the amateur filmmaker group, and they used to make films to enter into competitions, as not as usual, but they also used to make pornography, and I do believe it was snuff as well, snuff films.
What makes you believe there were snuff movies involved in this?
Because they would make, they would talk about it. I do have memories of being a witness to this myself.
You're talking about being a witness to snuff
or
movies?
Even being part of it, or being in it, but not of my own choosing, obviously. But yes.
Are you saying that you could have been actually killed in one of these movies.
I don't think I would have been killed. I think they would have made me kill something in one of these movies.
Which is what James said to this other witness who reported this on camera.
They would have made me kill a human or an animal. There was this, yes, dogs mainly, in these movies, yes. And then probably to kill, I would probably be made to kill another human being. But
what do you mean probably? Can you give us the modus operandi of what was going on in those films and who got them? Who were the customers?
Well, they had they would just pass it around, this group that they were, this international group, and I say international because it reached, and national, British and everything, and it reached to the higher ups and to the lower people.
What do you mean by the higher ups?
The elite, the
we're talking Jimmy Savile here, or are we talking Jimmy Savile?
Yes, Jimmy Savile.
So what did he have? What was his involvement?
Well, you see, the group would go to Broadmoor on his request to entertain the inmates there. Broadmoor was a big place that they would all go to. They would go there apparently to entertain them. And Jimmy Savile would obviously be there, and they would say, well, Jimmy Savile requested them to go to entertain the inmates at Broadmoor.
Now, for other people who don't know what Broadmoor is, did you explain that?
Well, it's a mental health facility type thing, yeah.
But what wing or what part, who were going to be the customers for this entertainment?
The inmates.
And what type of inmate?
Well, all I knew is they would say, well, we're going to go and entertain the inmates at Broadmoor. And Jimmy Savile requested it. So that's where they'd go. Now...
Who exactly is they?
Sorry, the Amateur Dramatics group.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they would give... So they would give an amateur dramatic...
show.
Play to entertain the prisoners and committed people.
The prisoners, yes, at Broadmoor.
And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with just giving these prisoners a play or whatever? Why are you saying there's something bad about that?
Well, because sometimes they would go and do this entertaining for the inmates, but I do know that in some of these ritual party type things, Jimmy Savile would be there too.
Okay,
and
so he's done all this. This has been on TV. I mean, we've seen him entertain charity work and all this sort of stuff. What's the big deal about this? Okay, he's there with.
No, he was at the these ritual party things that they would be having.
Okay, in the last part, you said an awful lot about these parties. In this particular part, could you explain what you really mean by that?
Well, that's when they did the ceremonies, the satanic ceremonies, where they'd be doing the sacrificing of a baby, or even a young female woman, or animals actually as well. And they would sacrifice the animals or something like that. Jimmy Savile would be there. Yeah, he was there as well. He was kind of like one of the higher up ones in the men, because the men were the lower, because the women were the highest, and he was higher up than even my adoptive father, my natural father. Sorry. So he was more revered than everyone else. Probably because he probably did more, a lot more than they did, type of thing. And
what do you mean by type of thing?
Sorry?
What do you mean by type of thing?
He did a lot more than they did. I mean, heinous things. He was more willing to do
Explain.
He was more willing to do more. I'm going to say heinous, like, I don't know, having sex with the dead body or something, or killing. And I know we've heard all this on Jimmy Savile's called Come Out, but there would also be the, you know, like Mara Hindley and her partner and stuff. They would be there or spoken about, because, and then there was also so anyway, Jimmy Savile was like the higher, would you call it, priest or something. He would have more of the like a cloak and a hat on as well. He'd be more of the commander. He'd be the one commanding the ceremonies, that kind of thing, telling people what to do. And so that was Jimmy Savile was there. Rolf Harris was there. Frank Bruno was there. Then there would be other rich and famous people, the celebrities, that sort of thing. Royalty would also be there sometimes, not all the time, sometimes. Lords and ladies, that kind of thing. They would be there. MPs as well. And yeah, the MPs would be there as well.
So what sort of time period is this?
We're talking 70s, 80s.
Okay.
Late 70s, 80s, and going into the 90s as well. But more late 80s, yes. Because I left the group, as it were, in 1990. Trying to think, 1997 or 90. Not left the group, but I had nothing more to do with them. So it would be more like I left 1999. So yeah, 1997. We left. Well, my eldest daughter, was born in 1999, and so we left the area, everything, in 2004.
And just to recap, you're telling us about this now because you don't want your children.
I didn't want my children to be put in danger. Plus, I knew that, well, basically when my daughters were born, when they were about, there's a year apart between them. So when they were about 1 or 2, then I went to the police and I told them what I knew, and I named Jimmy Savile, and I had named a list of people. The police turned it on me, making me out to be the one that was the abuser. I was the one making it all up. I was delusional. And then social services got involved, and then they put the children on the at-risk register because of future harm of my belief system, that I believed Jimmy Savile was a paedophile and that he was what he was, and he was part of the group. And because I named him and others like Rolf Harris and stuff, then they said I was delusional.
What do you mean and stuff?
Sorry. When I named everyone, and I told the police about the SRA, Satanic Ritual Abuse, and I told them about the group and the area, everything I've been talking about so far, then the police, the social services said, well, I was delusional. I had my belief system would be harming my children in the future, and because of future abuse, they had to be put on the child protection register. Before they could get to the point of taking my children away, like they do, social services do on a regular basis, I fled the country with my children. And then I went to South Africa because I've got dual nationality. So, and my daughters, I made sure that they had dual nationality too, so that we could all go to South Africa. And my daughters and I went to South Africa, and we had that dual nationality. And then while I was in South Africa, the Metropolitan Police, no, sorry, I'll go back on that, sorry. I was given a safe house to go to before I went to South Africa. And this safe house, they knew I was leaving the country, and they didn't want to know where I was going or anything. So basically, this safe house is in Scotland, it's being run by a charity, and basically we left and went to South Africa, and apparently the charity was raided by the Metropolitan Police in Scotland, the Met. The London police went to Scotland and raided them because of me. Why would they do that? Yeah? Why not get the Scottish police? But apparently the charity said the Met came, took the computers, and were demanding to know where I was. But they didn't know where I'd gone because they didn't want to know where I had gone with the kids. And there wasn't any court orders on the children, nothing like that. They hadn't got that far. But why would the Met get involved? Because I had been telling my local police station about my case, and that was Thames Valley Police. I never went to the Met. So, so basically, I left South Africa because when I was in South Africa, the police there came looking for me and the children, and we had got an airline ticket and we left South Africa and came back here. So I was being chased around like a terrorist, like I'd committed the worst crime in the history, or like I was a bank robber or something, which I'm not. And so basically the police in South Africa were contacted by the police here, or social services here. They contacted the South African police to come and question me. I haven't committed a crime at all. So the children and I, we flew back to UK, and then we kind of lived in a caravan for a year to go off grid. I was homeschooling the children anyway, so you know they never got registered at school. And then when it seemed to be then it seemed to be safer. So then my partner and I, my ex-husband and I bought a house, and then we were able to live a more solid, stable life with the children. But like I said, they were home educated, so I didn't believe in the school system anyway. So yeah, so that was it. But the thing is, I seem to have not been chased much more because Jimmy Savile died. So by then I felt safer because it all came out about Jimmy Savile. I contacted a lawyer who was doing the when they were suing the BBC or suing for the Jimmy Savile thing. But the lawyer dropped. I got dropped, and I don't know why. So that happened there. Maybe the Met got involved again. I don't know. But now my children are safer. I feel happier to come out because I've got nothing to lose now. And my eldest daughter said, no, you should speak up because of the people still being in the tunnels, maybe. And maybe I know something that they don't know.
What do you know about the people in the tunnels?
Well, I believe...
And we've already had Julie Phelps on talking about the tunnels, the secret space program, people going down these tunnels. What do you know?
I know that there's a connection, and I know this because my family rented a house by the river. So I do know that there is like a connection through the river system, River Thames, going all the way up to London, and because we were living on the Thames, and because my biological father has a house on the Thames, I know that they have a way of transporting people, humans, along the River Thames, and there is a tunnel that goes under the River Thames, all the way up to wherever, all the way to London, that kind of thing. Or as a tunnel system, maybe running alongside the River Thames, deep underground type of thing. So that's how they transport humans from A to B, whatever, all the way up to Leighton Buzzard, that kind of thing. And I'm sorry, what was your question?
Well, it's just so that I've forgotten almost. That it's your experience of these tunnels. You mentioned
my experience.
You mentioned Peasemore.
I got taken into the tunnels. So I got taken into the tunnels.
So who took you in the tunnels, and where did they go?
My natural father, my adoptive father, the women of the group. We'd go into the tunnels and go on these very, very fast train system that's under there. And that would take you to, you could go from, say, let's just say Reading, right across to, say, Kent. And it would be really quick going from one to the other. So normally above ground, it would take, I don't know how long it takes to go from here to Kent, but underground it would take like minimal time, like 20 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. So to cut across the country is like half the time of what we'd normally, even less than half the time, to go from A to B. So to go from London to Scotland, above ground is a lot longer, but underneath it's
Can you describe these tunnels? I mean, are there windows you can look out, see things like you can in a tube train?
It's like the Channel Tunnel train system. So when you go in the Channel Tunnel, you go underground, under the sea, and in the train you don't see anything. It's all dark. Yeah, it's like the Channel Tunnel. That's the only way I can kind of describe it. So the Channel Tunnel is like this, but it has got lights along it, type of thing. But it's very dark. But it's kind of like the Channel Tunnel, Eurotunnel, going underneath. But the trains are faster than the Channel Tunnel train. But it's just like the Channel Tunnel.
But the trains are conventional sort of types of high-speed train.
The Channel Tunnel, the trains that I'm talking about are not like the Channel Tunnel trains. They're more like the Japanese bullet train, that fast, like the Japanese one. That's the only one I can think of above ground that we have that I can describe it as.
But the train is a lot more advanced. I mean, there must be protection in the seating and whatever.
It's like, the seating is like an airline, like when you sit in an airline and you've got like the seats, not like a train seats like we have in the Channel Tunnel train. They're just like an airline seats, basically. When you go on a commercial airline.
Is there any hospitality, like drinks, peanuts and cigars?
Well, it seems to have something. I mean, obviously, I never got that or anything. I never got treated to that. Probably, no, but it was almost like, it's a bit like when people go into these decompressing tanks, and with a decompressing tank, you've got the seats either side and everything. It's a bit like that.
So you're facing each other?
Yes. So you haven't really got windows because you've got like a decompressing tank, but it's all facing each other. Yes. So the train's going that way, and everyone's sitting opposite each other, type of thing.
And what are the G-forces when you brake?
Well, it is quite, your ears would pop. It was kind of like, you'd feel it, but it wouldn't be like you'd imagine like on the movies with the space travel, in the space shuttles taking off and going out to space and everything. Or in the movies when they show you the G-forces and everyone's sitting back like that. It's not quite as violent as that. Yeah, there is a G-force, but not quite like when you go up in the space shuttle up into space, or any space.
Have you had experience of space?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Well, bloody hell, we got to it finally. Now, tell us all about that.
Well, okay, as I said, the Greys visited me in my bedroom. I remember the light coming through the window. I mean, through the glass, as it were, but the light came through the window like a laser blue light coming through the window, and it lit up the bedroom. It's blue light and everything. And then they were in my bedroom, and I don't think it was just the Greys. It was like there was little ones, and then some big ones were with them. But these weren't reptilian, alien type things. I'm going to say more Palladian, like aliens, and they kind of came into my bedroom, but not walked in, but like appeared in my bedroom, and then they, as I call shimmering, we went off. They took me, and the next thing I knew, I was in the spacecraft, and then it was flying up, leaving the Earth. Now there was a big kind of window type thing in front of me, and there was no talking. There was no voices. It was all in the head, all in my brain, telepathic. And I could see out the window, and Earth was, very small down there, and then there was no Earth. Then it was, going faster out of there, and then so we got away from Earth. I was standing there, and they were like asking me, "Do you want to go back?" And I said yes. And they said, "Why do you want to go back?" And I said, "Because I haven't finished yet. Take me back." So
what do you mean by that? Because that infers that you could, or you would have liked to maybe not come back.
Well, they asked me if I wanted to come back, and I said yes, because I hadn't finished. I hadn't finished yet. So did I want to go with them? In a way, yes. Yes, I did.
What did they offer you that was better than staying on a beautiful green planet like Earth?
They offered me to go home. They said, "Do you want to go home?" Not Earth. Do I want to go home to this other planet they were showing me? They said, "Do you want to go home, which isn't Earth, or do you want to go back to Earth?"
Well, and what is home? Explain what home is.
Well, I haven't seen any diagrams of this planet or anything like that. It kind of looks like Earth, but not Earth. It's like greener than Earth. It's got blue and green like Earth, but a lot greener than Earth. And they kept saying, "Do you want to go home?" Meaning that planet, or did I want to go back to Earth? And that's when I said, "I haven't finished yet. I haven't finished. Take me back to Earth."
You mean you haven't finished your mission or something? Or
I think so. I don't know. Why would I say that? I don't know. But I kept saying, "I haven't finished yet. I've got to go back." And
I mean, do you? How long ago was that? And would you say that your mission is, you are completing your mission now?
Yes. Yes, I am. I believe I am, yes. I haven't had any visitations for the last, as far as I can tell, maybe, well, that happened when I was like, I had the visitation when I was a child, then another one when I was a teenager, and another one just before I was 20. And I do not remember any more than that. And the one they said, "Do you want to go back?" And I said, "Do you want to go home?" And I said, "I want to go back." That one was more around probably 18, 20, I can't remember. But I said I hadn't finished and I have to go back. But they called this other planet home, and it wasn't Earth. But as I said, there's diagrams of planets now we have that NASA give us, and they haven't got this planet that I saw So I don't know the name of it.
So that's quite far away then.
Yes, because when I was in that spacecraft, I was watching out can you call it a window? The screen, and Earth was getting smaller and smaller and smaller over there, and then you had this. Well, yeah. Then it was like shump away from that, a bit like the movies when they do the warp, when they go into hyperdrive or whatever they call it in the movies.
Yeah.
It was a bit like that. Yeah. A bit like those movies, yes. And then it was like they were like. So yeah, I saw Earth becoming like a tiny, tiny thing, and then this warp speed or whatever you want to call it, and then stop. And then they said, "Do you want to go home?" Pointing at this planet, this thing that I'd never seen before, or that I remembered, or do you want to go back? And then I think it was a picture or on the screen of the planet, and then the picture of Earth. And they said, "Do you want to go back there? Or do you want to go home?" And that wasn't Earth. And I said, "I hadn't finished yet. I have to go back." So, and I think it was because I hadn't had my daughters yet, maybe. Or I had something else to do here.
But you were experiencing some horrendous things.
Yeah. But maybe it was past the awakening, because if you don't go through something terrible, you don't know what it's like to have something good. You won't appreciate the good unless you've had the bad. And I believe I had to go through that bad stuff because I had to experience the good, and it was all my choice. And maybe it's my soul growth. Maybe it's to help download into other people, humans, and to stop them making the same mistakes, destroying themselves, maybe.
Well, they've chosen one hell of a time to do it, because we're
But that's probably
we're not
this is
we're
the
not
ideal. Maybe this is the ideal time to do it.
It is the ideal time.
Yes. I
Well,
believe it is the ideal time to do it.
We've done over 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to take a sort of like give us your resume or your final word on things for the next couple of minutes?
Well, I believe that this information that I have has to come out into the open. I think more and more people will come forward, more and more people will the victims will start to remember what they've been through, especially the children that were abused with me, who went to that school. Maybe they've grown up as adults and they're still continuing the same path. I believe that there is a way we can stop this from continuing if more people understand and know about it, and know what actually happens, and about the tunnel system, and the tunnel system in this pretty little village that no one could ever imagine these terrible things could be happening. And I believe that the more people that understand what I have said can be more aware of it happening in where they live, where they are, and also believe that it can actually it does happen, and stop denying that this goes on, and to believe that even though there's all these lovely houses and people, families, doesn't necessarily mean, and churches, doesn't necessarily mean it's all sweetness and light. And there's other things going on behind the scenes, especially in churches and religious organisations. And also the fact that the military were involved in some way, or some other force is in control of some branch of our military or navy, or even the police force as well. And whatever that may be, it could be alien, I don't know. So yes, and for humans to wake up now and see the truth, and maybe harness their gifts, their abilities, their psychic gifts and abilities, because we all have it, we all have that. If we just take the blinkers off.
When James was going to jail, I was sitting with him in the first major case that was to put him away for a very long time. He did say something. He wanted to save the children. Would you have anything you wanted to say to James if you wanted to say anything to James?
Anything I wanted to say to James?
Yeah.
Well, I'm also coming out as well because I feel what happened to James is very unfair, and I feel he was set up and led astray perhaps by his ex, and I was also, I feel, led astray by my ex. It was all a set-up to get him into prison, to shut him up, and I want to say to James that I do believe him, and that I do believe there's a connection between him and I. I don't quite know what yet, but I'll have to kind of keep waiting for stuff to maybe come to the surface, because I think there is a connection between with that, and also maybe his family and my family, and the people he knew, and the house he grew up in, and that place where that murder happened that he mentioned. And I'm here to sort of say to him that he's not on his own, and I believe him, obviously. And I do. My heart went out to him when he was put in prison. When he was put in prison with that very long prison sentence, which is unjustified. And I'm also doing this to kind of maybe, I don't think it'll help his case, obviously. I think far from it. If anything, it's not going to help his case to get him out of prison. But to say, at least he's not on his own, which I know he's not. There are other people who have come out with him as well. And maybe he can link up part of his story to what I'm saying, to the people that did this to me as well. Because maybe there's a link. And maybe he and I knew each other back at, maybe we knew each other as well, somehow.
Have you heard of Dave Marrow?
Yes.
Have you talked with Dave?
No, I haven't.
Would you like to talk to him?
Yes. I've spoken to David Icke. I've spoken to, David Icke, but that was years and years ago. But no, I haven't spoken to David. And I spoke to Mike Robinson of UK Column. But that was years ago. But that was before I kind of, but even before James Casbolt went to prison. I don't think either David Icke or Mike Robinson will remember me. They might. When I spoke to them, yes.
I have to say that the guy that was involved with introducing Dave Marrow to me was a guy called Alistair.
Alistair? Who?
There's a couple of Alistairs in the story. But,
right. Okay. And he's saying he abused him?
No, he introduced the story of Burnworthy Manor and the training that went on there for the British Super Soldier programme.
Right.
Have you heard of Burnworthy Manor?
Heard of what, sorry?
Burnworthy Manor.
No.
Okay.
No, I've known Glamorous Castle. And, Scotland's another rabbit hole. Glamorous Castle. And there's, then with the Scottish thing, there's Edinburgh. Holyrood. There's obviously Loch Ness, because that cousin lived there. Dundee, Glasgow, loads of places in Scotland. Oh, and the Orkney Islands, sorry, yes, the Orkney Islands.
Well, that's something that Dave Marrow talked about.
Because there is a connection to the Orkney Islands, and then my... within the family, there is a cousin, an illegitimate child who was adopted, and then she ended up in the Orkney Islands, and so she's there. And then there's past the group, there's a whiskey distillery place, I'm not going to name it, on the Orkney Islands as well, and that's a cover for something else on the Orkney Islands.
SSP?
The distillery, no, it's not called that.
No, I'm talking about the secret space program.
Yes. And then you have like...
Now, yes, a very strong yes, because I know another distillery that may be connected to the secret space program.
Oh, okay. I didn't know the significance of this distillery, but it's connected to the group and everything.
In what way? In terms of drinking lots of good whiskey when they have a nice meal? Or is it in the water?
Is it in the water?
Is the water special?
Yes. Yes,
in
it
what
is.
way?
It seems to be right, like more refined, more of a higher standard.
There's water that comes from deep within in the earth.
Yes. And
it's a different energetics, the triple spiral.
It seems this water is more refined, well, it's said refined and of a higher standard. The water we have is rubbish. The water they have is better. It's more refined and of a higher standard. The water we have, we all drink, is aging us. This other water is more is like an elixir of youth. You know, it's like a youth thing as well. I don't know what it's got in it, but yes, that distillery, there's something with the water. Yes. Now,
I think we'll sort of close on this.
Okay.
I think you've got things to do, but I mean, finally, I mean, you came over very strongly about the SSPs.
Yes.
What is, in a nutshell, the SSP as far as you're concerned?
I believe that it's two-sided, and I believe you've got the dark side and the light side, the good guys, the bad guys, and there is a battle, there is a war going on, and the bad guys, the ones that took me, the aliens that took me to give me a choice of coming back here, they're good. The ones that are bad, they're the negative ones, I believe, and I think the secret space program is very true and very real. Yes. And I think there's more going on up there than we'll ever know. There's actually wars going on above our heads right now that we don't know about, and there you go to Star Wars again. You know, when they said in a galaxy far, far away, you know, I think that's more true to life than we'll know. Yes. And the secret space program, not only that, but I do believe there's going underwater on Earth as well. You go deep sea type of thing, and maybe even going down into the Earth, because we all think the Earth's not that far down. No. It is. It goes further down than that. There's something else underneath there in the centre, I believe. Yes. Oh, I know.
And you did mention High Brazil.
Yes.
Off the southwest corner of Ireland.
Yeah.
Well, I think on that, Sophia.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You've done a tremendous amount. Thank you to contributing to Basis 1. Bringing the story up to date from all those years ago that Barry King released that information to us. And thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for coming to Basis as a witness. And may your God bless you, my dear.
Thank you.